She kissed her boss at the company party, drunk, shaking, desperate, in love with a man 20 years older. It lasted seconds, enough to ruin her, enough to expose her. He could have destroyed her. He didn't. He broke the kiss first, placed his own jacket over her bare shoulders, pulled her gently back. And then he spoke. One sentence, low, controlled. The room went silent. No laughter, no whispers, only shock. Because that moment changed everything. And it all started with a mistake. Alice stopped in front of the meeting room door. Glass, cold, transparent. She inhaled, slow, counted to 3, pushed the door open with confidence she didn't feel. Cesar Almeida sat at the head of the table, laptop open, fingers moving fast. He didn't look up. He never did. Alice stepped inside quietly, placed the folder next to him, took 2 steps back. Protocol, always protocol. The numbers from the last audit, she said. Neutral voice, professional. He felt her presence. Nothing more. A minimal nod, eyes still on the screen. She turned to leave. Wait. His voice stopped her mid-step. She turned back on her heels, hands folded in front of her body. Perfect posture, impeccable. He kept typing, as if she wasn't there. 10 seconds, 20. Finally, he closed the laptop. When he looked at her, the air left her lungs. Those eyes, dark, sharp, impossible to read, cold control, a concrete wall between them. But something else lived behind that wall. Something she felt every time they were in the same room. Intensity, burning. The third quarter report has inconsistencies. Low voice, firm. Redo it. Alice blinked. I reviewed it 3 times. Then review it a 4th. The sentence fell like a hammer. No anger, no emotion, only command. She swallowed her frustration. Yes, sir. Cesar reopened the laptop. Dismissed, without a word. Alice left the room with trembling legs, heart racing. She hated this, hated how he ignored her, hated the calculated distance, the permanent barrier he kept between them, and she hated even more that despite everything, she was hopelessly in love with him. Alice locked herself inside a bathroom stall, leaned against the cold door, closed her eyes. You're pathetic. The thought didn't help. It never did. Cesar Almeida was 20 years older, the CEO, untouchable, and she was just the assistant, the woman he barely looked at. But Alice knew. His coldness was not natural. It was deliberate. Every measured word, every restrained gesture, every glance cut half a second short. Control. That kind of control only existed when something dangerous was being held back. Or maybe you're delusional. She opened her eyes, straightened her posture, washed her face, fixed her hair into a flawless bun. Work. That was the focus. But as she passed the glass corridor leading to his office, she looked. Cesar stood by the window. Back to her. City stretched below him, hands in his pockets. Broad shoulders tight under the tailored suit. He looked alone. Her chest tightened. Stop it. Impossible. Impossible to ignore how her heart reacted every time he entered a room. The subtle scent of wood and leather, his deep voice raising goosebumps on her skin. The way his fingers held a pen with surgical precision. 20 years. Boss and subordinate. An unbridgeable gap. And still. Alice wanted to jump. At 6 p.m. the office emptied. Alice stayed. Alone. Redoing the damn report. Half the floor was already dark. She turned on a desk lamp, kept typing. Line after line, number after number. The door opened. She looked up. Cesar stood in the doorway, still in his suit, tie perfect. You're still here. Finishing the report. He stepped closer, stopped beside her desk. Too close. The scent hit her. Male. Controlled. Devastating. That wasn't for today. I know, but I prefer to deliver it now. Silence. He watched the screen. She couldn't focus. His presence radiated heat inches away. "Go home, Alice." The way he said her name, slow, reluctant, something twisted inside her. "I'm almost done." That wasn't a request. She saved the file, shut down the computer, grabbed her bag, stood up. He didn't move. They stood there, separated by pure tension. She looked up. He looked down. For 1 second. The mask cracked, something hungry, contained, dangerous. Then he stepped back, cold again. "Good night." He left. Alice stayed, shaking, and finally admitted the truth she'd been avoiding. She didn't just want Cesar Almeida, she needed him, and that need was going to destroy her. Tense. Alice stood still for 1 more second. The document shook in her hands. "Yes, sir. I'll go. Go." The way he said her name did something to her, something twisted deep in her stomach. She turned, closed the door behind her, leaned against the corridor wall, legs weak, heart out of rhythm. The touch still burned on her skin. It was accidental. That's all. That's what she told herself. He was just handing her a document. You're seeing things that don't exist. But then, why that look? Why the unexpected patience? Why had his voice faltered at the end? Alice returned to her desk, sat down, stared at the paper. The letters blurred, danced. She couldn't focus, because for the first time a dangerous doubt settled in her mind. What if it wasn't just her? No. Stop. Don't be ridiculous. Cesar Almeida was cold, distant, professional, untouchable. That touch meant nothing. That look meant nothing. She had to stop inventing things inside her own head before it destroyed her. And yet, she stared at her fingers, still feeling the ghost of his touch burning her skin. The email arrived Friday afternoon. Subject line, "End of year party. Confirmation of attendance." Her stomach tightened. "The board is pleased to invite all employees to the annual company party, next Saturday, 8 p.m. Panorama Hall." She closed the email. Immediately. No, absolutely not. Around her the office buzzed. Excitement. Colleagues discussed dresses, heels, makeup. Someone mentioned open bar. Laughter echoed down the corridor. Alice lowered her head, pretended to review spreadsheets. A party meant danger. Cesar outside the controlled office environment. No desk between them, no work excuses, no glass walls holding everything in place. It meant seeing him as a man, not just a CEO. "You're going, right?" Mariana from accounting appeared beside her desk, smiling. "I don't know," Alice murmured, eyes on the screen. "What do you mean you don't know? It's the party of the year. Even Cesar is going." His name hit her like a punch. "He always goes," Mariana continued. "Stays half an hour, then leaves, but he shows up." She leaned closer, lowered her voice. "And they say, this year, he might stay longer. I heard his secretary mention it." Alice forced a smile. "That's nice. You have to go, it'll be fun." Mariana walked away, still talking. Alice inhaled deeply. She wasn't going, simple. She'd invent an excuse. Headache, family obligation, anything. Because standing in the same room as Cesar, watching him smile at other people, hearing him talk, smelling him, without the protection of office formality, she wouldn't survive. She was about to leave when the email arrived. 6:30 p.m. The office almost empty, bag in hand, computer shutting down, notification blinking. Cesar Almeida. Her heart stopped. She dropped the bag, clicked the email with trembling fingers. "Dear team, I'd like to reinforce the invitation to tomorrow's celebration. I know many of you hesitate to attend corporate events, but this is a moment to celebrate together the year's achievements. Your presence is important. Sincerely, Cesar Almeida." She read it once, twice, 3 times. Your presence is important. He never sent group emails. Never. This kind of message always came from HR, from his executive assistant, never from him. And now, there it was, signed by him. Your presence is important. Alice bit her lower lip. He was speaking to everyone, obviously, a collective email, but I know many of you hesitate. They don't hesitate. She does. Your presence, not presences. Singular. Stop it. You're delusional again. It was professional, generic encouragement. Nothing more. So why was her heart racing? Why were her hands shaking? Why did she reread the words like they were coded just for her? She closed the email, grabbed her bag, left. On the crowded subway, pressed against the door. The sentence echoed inside her head. Your presence is important. Saturday morning, she woke up determined. She wasn't going. She cleaned the apartment, watched series, avoided thinking about the party. At 7 p.m., she ordered food, put on pajamas. Decision made. At 7:30, her phone vibrated. Mariana. The venue is stunning. Are you on your way? Alice typed. I won't make it. Sorry. Deleted the message. Opened Caesar's email again. Your presence is important. She closed her eyes. He's not talking to you, the rational voice insisted, but the dangerous one whispered back. What if you don't go and he notices your absence? What if he expected you? Alice opened her eyes, stood up, walked to the closet, pulled out the black dress, the one she'd never worn. Bought on impulse, simple, elegant. Marked her waist, fell to her knees, she showered, did her makeup, pinned her hair into a low bun, loose strands framing her face. At 8:15 she stood before the mirror. She looked different, like someone who belonged there, in that world, beside him. You'll regret this. The rational voice warned one last time. Alice grabbed her bag and left, because maybe she would regret going, but not going, never knowing if those words meant something. That would be worse. Panorama Hall sat atop a tower in the city center. The elevator climbed, her stomach twisted. With every floor, the certainty of a mistake grew. The doors opened, music, lights, laughter. Alice inhaled, stepped inside. The room was full, decorated tables, illuminated bar, a glass wall revealing the entire city. People gathered in groups, glasses raised, smiles everywhere. She searched for him, before realizing she was doing it. And then she saw him, near the bar. Dark suit, no tie. Talking to two men, directors, whiskey in hand, posture straight, expression controlled but present. And so was she. She didn't know if this was the best or worst decision of her life. She only knew she couldn't turn back. Alice grabbed a glass of champagne. She didn't usually drink, but needed something to hold, something to justify standing there, alone. Around her, everyone looked comfortable, laughing, greeting one another. She recognized faces, finance, accounting, managers, but she belonged nowhere, just the assistant. She took a sip, cold, slightly bitter. Mariana appeared, pulled her closer to the bar, introduced her around. Alice smiled, nodded, pretended interest in conversations about goals and projections, but her eyes always returned to him. Caesar stayed on the other side of the room, still serious. Yet something was different, a subtle lightness, almost imperceptible, as if the office walls had been left behind. Alice took another sip. So you okay? Mariana asked, leaning closer. Yes, why? You look tense. Alice forced a smile. I'm fine. Mariana shrugged, turned back to the group. Alice finished the glass, grabbed another. The alcohol warmed her body, softened the sharp edges of anxiety. It's fine, she told herself. He doesn't even know you're here. And then she saw her. A woman approached Caesar, tall, elegant, red dress falling perfectly over a slender body, dark hair pinned into a sophisticated bun, makeup flawless. Mature, his age. Caesar smiled. Alice's chest split open. She'd never seen him smile like that, not at the office. There he was, ice, control, distance. But now, with that woman, he smiled, small, discreet, real. The woman said something. Caesar laughed. Alice tightened her grip on the glass. Her fingers turned white. Who is she? She asked, the tension in her voice unmistakable. Mariana followed her gaze. Oh, that's Beatrice, marketing director. Amazing, right? They say she and Caesar studied together years ago. Studied together, same age, same class, same world. And Alice finally understood how far away she truly was. Alice took another sip, then another. The glass emptied too fast. She grabbed a third, or maybe a fourth. She had lost count. Across the room, Beatrice touched Cesar's arm, light, casual, intimate. She laughed at something he said, the kind of touch people their age exchanged without thinking, the kind of touch Alice would never have, too young, too inexperienced, too insignificant. The alcohol burned now, but she kept drinking. She needed it, needed the numbness. "They look good together, don't they?" The comment came from her side. Alice turned sharply. Two women from HR stood near the bar, talking, laughing, unaware she could hear them. "I always thought Caesar and Beatrice had something." "Really? You think so?" "Look at them. She's the only person I've ever seen make him laugh." "For real?" The words cut like blades. Alice finished the glass. Her hands shook, the edges of her vision blurred. "He will never look at you." The cruel voice echoed inside her. "You're just a child to him." She looked at Beatrice again, mature, confident, elegant, perfect. Everything Alice wasn't. Everything she would never be. The music changed, slower. Couples drifted to the center of the room. Cesar and Beatrice kept talking, closer now. Heads inclined toward each other to hear above the music. The room spun. Alcohol, jealousy, pain. Everything merged into a suffocating weight crushing her chest, stealing her air, making her want to disappear. "You're pathetic," the voice whispered, "in love with a man who doesn't even see you." Alice set the empty glass on a nearby table. Her legs were unsteady. She needed to leave, needed air. But then Caesar looked her way. Half a second. Just one. Their eyes met. Alice froze. He saw her, recognized her. His expression shifted, a slight furrow between his brows. Surprise, as if he hadn't expected to see her there. Beatrice said something. Caesar looked away, returned his attention to her, and Alice couldn't take it any more. The pain exploded in her chest, like glass shattering. Months of silence, months of restraint, months of loving someone who would never look at her the way she needed, because she wasn't enough. She never would be. The alcohol burned through her veins, her vision blurred, her hands trembled, and something inside her broke. Alice crossed the room, no thinking, no planning, just walking. Her heart slammed against her ribs, her breath short, desperate. The dress clung to her damp skin. The people around her were just blurs. She saw only him. Alice stopped 1 meter from Caesar. The room continued moving. Music, laughter, conversations. But it all felt distant, muted, like she was underwater. She heard only her own heartbeat. Caesar looked at her with the expression she knew too well. Control, cold restraint, the impenetrable mask he wore like armor. Beatrice stood beside him, glass in hand, smile still present. She looked at Alice, curious, then at Caesar. "Alice," his voice was low, firm. "You've been drinking." The words sounded like an accusation. Something inside her snapped. "So what if I drank?" The words slurred, loaded with anger. "Does that matter to you?" Caesar exchanged a quick look with Beatrice, a silent communication Alice didn't understand, and that only made it worse. "Excuse me," Beatrice murmured. She stepped away. Discreet. They were alone, almost, because people were starting to notice. Glances turned, conversations softened. Caesar saw it. His jaw tightened. "Let's step outside," he said, taking a step toward her. "No." Alice stepped back, her voice too loud, heads turned. "I'm not going anywhere with you." "Alice, you're not okay." "I'm great." She stepped forward, into his space. "Better than ever. Because now I finally understand." Caesar frowned. "Understand what?" "That I will never be enough for you." The words landed like punches, raw, painful, true. His face hardened. "You're drunk. You don't know what you're saying." "I know exactly." She felt tears burn, refused to let them fall. "I know I'm too young, too insignificant, that you prefer women like her." She pointed to where Beatrice had gone. "Stop this. Now." His voice dropped. Dangerous. Alice didn't stop. "It's the truth. You treat me like I'm invisible, like I don't exist, and I stayed, for months, waiting." Her voice cracked. The alcohol stripped away all control. Around them, more people fell silent. The circle of attention grew. Cesar stepped closer, lowered his voice further. "Alice, listen. You'll regret this tomorrow. Let me take you home." "Take me home?" She laughed, bitter, broken. "For what? So Monday we pretend this never happened? So you can ignore me again?" "I don't ignore you." "You do." The tears finally fell. "You act like I don't matter, like everything I feel is nothing." "Stop. Now." But she couldn't. Months of silence, contained pain, unreturned love, it all poured out, uncontrolled. "Why are you like this?" Her voice trembled. "Why do you keep this distance? Why do you act like I don't exist when I—" She stopped. The words died in her throat. "When I love you." She didn't say it out loud, but it hung there, clear, undeniable. Cesar stared at her. Now his composure cracked at the edges. Something dangerous burned in his eyes. "You don't know what you're saying," he said, tense. "I do." She stepped closer, now inches apart. "I know exactly." And before reason could stop her, before fear could paralyze her, Alice grabbed the lapels of his jacket, both hands, pulled him toward her. Her lips crashed into his, desperate, impulsive, destructive. For a fraction of a second, the world stopped. Then Cesar pushed her away, fast, firm, decisive. His hands held her shoulders, creating space. His lips didn't move, didn't respond. They stayed there, still less than 2 seconds. Then he pushed her back, not violently, but with certainty. "No." His voice came out rough. "No, Alice." She opened her eyes. Horror hit her like a train. The sound of the room flooded back. Shocked murmurs, sharp whispers, heavy silence. Alice released his jacket, as if it burned. And then she saw them. People frozen, staring. Mariana, hand over her mouth. Eyes wide. 2 managers, a few meters away. Beatrice near the bar. Expression unreadable. Everyone saw. They saw the drunk assistant try to kiss the CEO. They saw him refuse. They saw the humiliation. Alice stumbled back, heels catching, the room spinning violently. Air refused to fill her lungs. Panic rose, a wave swallowing her whole. I'm sorry," she stammered, her voice breaking. Cesar still held her shoulders, firm, keeping her upright. His eyes were locked on hers, intense, contained, dangerously close to something she couldn't name. There was no anger, no disgust, only rigid control. "You're not yourself," he said softly, "and I am not the kind of man who—" The sentence died. He inhaled deeply, closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, the mask was back. Cold. Impossible. Perfect. Alice cried, unable to stop. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I shouldn't—" "No," he interrupted. "We'll talk later." The room felt like a minefield. Eyes, whispers, expectations. Alice closed her eyes, chest tightening. She expected it. The dismissal, the public humiliation, the final blow. Silence spread through the hall. Absolute. Cesar still stood before her, posture erect, expression controlled, blocking most of the staring eyes. He didn't fully release her shoulders. He adjusted his stance, not holding her, but holding the moment, protecting her from falling and from being devoured by the judgment around them. The attention in the air was so dense it vibrated. Alice kept her eyes closed, tears streaming freely, waiting for the public disgrace, the announced firing, the shame she believed she deserved. Cesar spoke, low voice, controlled, but it cut through the room like a blade. You're not yourself. The words came slow, measured, carefully chosen, but loaded, with something Alice couldn't name. She opened her eyes and found him staring straight at her, intense, still, unreadable. And I'm not the kind of man who takes advantage of that. The sentence fell into the ballroom like an explosion. The murmurs died instantly. Glasses froze mid-air. Conversations stopped halfway through. Silence. Alice blinked, confused. Tears blurred her vision. She didn't understand. He was protecting her. Around them, no one moved. No one spoke. The room was locked in place. Cesar's posture stayed firm, calm, without cruelty, and that alone was enough to silence everyone. Alice saw Mariana a few steps back, hand over her mouth, eyes wide. Two managers stood near the bar, frozen. Beatrice watched from a distance, her expression impossible to read. The gossips waited. They wanted a scandal. They wanted humiliation. They wanted to see the ruthless CEO destroy the reckless assistant. But Cesar didn't. He didn't raise his voice, didn't shame her. He simply held her shoulders, firm, steady, keeping her upright, and whispered again, "You're not yourself, and I'm not the kind of man who takes advantage of that." The message was clear, undeniable. He was refusing, but with dignity. He was protecting when he could have destroyed. Everyone saw it. Cesar released her slowly, but he didn't step away. He stayed there, a barrier between her and the burning eyes around them. Alice started shaking, from the alcohol, from the shock, from the shame eating her alive, but more than anything, from the confusion, because that man, that cold, distant boss, who barely looked at her for 2 seconds, had just done something no one expected. He had protected her, in front of everyone, with words that should have humiliated her, but somehow preserved what little dignity she had left, and Alice didn't know if that made things better or infinitely worse. Her legs trembled, the dress clung to her damp skin. Tears fell freely now. She wanted to disappear, sink into the floor, never be seen again. The whispers slowly returned, low, cruel. Cesar turned his head slightly, scanning the room. People dropped their gaze when he looked at them, but they stayed, watching, judging. Then he did something no one expected. He removed his jacket, slowly, deliberately, as if time didn't exist. He slid it off his shoulders, folded it once in his hands. Alice watched, confused. He stepped closer, stopped inches from her. So close, she could see the tight line of his jaw, the muscle pulsing there. His eyes locked on hers. So intense, she forgot how to breathe. Then he lifted the jacket and placed it over her shoulders. The fabric fell heavy, warm. It smelled like him, wood, leather, something masculine and devastating. It wrapped around her completely. Alice held her breath. Cesar adjusted it carefully, pulled the lapels forward, covering her, shielding her, as if that single gesture could return what she thought she had lost. His fingers brushed her shoulders, brief, professional, but it burned. He stepped back half a pace, looked at her one last time, then turned to the room and raised his voice. "Alice is unwell." The statement cut the air. Final, absolute, no room for debate. "I'm taking her home." His tone stayed firm, clear. "The party continues. Enjoy your evening." Silence followed, total. No one moved. No one dared question him. Because Cesar Almeida had just done the unthinkable. He had shielded the assistant who embarrassed him, publicly, with his own jacket. The message was obvious. He wasn't just covering her shoulders. He was taking responsibility. He was using his own reputation as a shield, saying without saying it, "Anyone who judges her answers to me." Alice clutched the lapels to her chest, hands shaking. She couldn't process it, couldn't understand. Why is he doing this? Why protect someone who just put him in an impossible position in front of the entire company? Cesar turned back to her. His face stayed controlled, but his eyes... Something was there. Tight, contained, fighting not to surface. He extended his arm, offering support. Alice hesitated just a second, but her legs were weak, and his arm was the only solid thing left in the chaos. She took it. Cesar guided her through the room, steady steps, clearing a path through curious stairs. He didn't let go. Not once. His posture said everything. She's under my responsibility. Alice walked beside him like someone crossing a courtroom, but his grip stayed firm, present, the only reason she could still breathe. They reached the hallway to the elevators. The noise of the party faded, replaced by the echo of their footsteps. Cesar pressed the button. Alice wiped her face with her hand. The shame still burned. And as they waited, another truth hit her, just as painful, with every step. He wasn't just saving her dignity. He was damaging his own name to protect her, and that hurt more than any judgment. The doors opened. The elevator descended in silence. Alice leaned against the mirrored wall, closed her eyes. Tears kept falling. The alcohol still clouded her mind, but what overwhelmed her most was the scent. Cesar's jacket surrounded her. Wood, leather, him. It invaded every breath, unbearable, comforting, a torture. She pulled the lapels tighter, trying to hide inside the fabric still warm from his body. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Her voice broke. "I'm sorry for everything." Cesar didn't answer. She opened her eyes. He faced the doors. Hands in his pockets, straight posture, no jacket. The white shirt stretched across broad shoulders, his body rigid. He didn't look at her, not now. His voice was low, tired. Alice closed her eyes again. The elevator stopped. The doors opened to the underground garage. Cesar stepped out first, waited for her. Alice followed in silence. Her heels echoed on the concrete. Each step felt like a sentence. He stopped beside a black car, discreet, expensive, unlocked it, opened the passenger door. Alice got in. No words, no strength to resist. Cesar closed the door gently, walked around, started the engine, and drove. The silence inside the car was thick, suffocating. Alice stared out the window. City lights blurred past. She saw nothing. She felt everything. The shame, the guilt. The scent of his jacket wrapped around her like a mark that wouldn't fade. Cesar drove with precision, hands steady on the wheel, eyes on the road. No words, no glances. Alice wanted to speak, to apologize again, to explain. But there was no explanation. She had thrown herself at him, drunk, desperate, pathetic, in front of everyone, and he had refused, with dignity, with restraint, with a decency she didn't deserve. And now he was taking her home, in silence, like a reckless child being protected from herself. She closed her eyes. Tears returned. By Monday, it would be over. He would fire her. Of course he would. She had crossed every line, humiliated him publicly, destroyed any trace of professionalism between them. There was no coming back. The car turned a corner, then another. The streets grew familiar, too familiar. She realized it too late. "I didn't give you my address." Her voice was hoarse. "How do you know where I live?" Cesar didn't answer right away. Eyes stayed on the road. "It's in your company file." He said it, simple, clear. Then silence again. Minutes passed, heavy, dense. And then he stopped. Alice recognized her building, plain facade. Bright entrance, 4th floor, her tiny apartment. Cesar turned off the engine. The silence became heavier. She waited, for him to speak, to say something about what happened, to humiliate her, to fire her right there. But he didn't. Hands on the wheel, eyes forward. Still. "Thank you for bringing me home," Alice whispered, because she didn't know what else to say. He didn't answer. She grabbed the door handle, hesitated. "The jacket. I'll return it on Monday." "Keep it," Cesar said. So low she almost missed it. Alice turned to look at him, but he stayed in profile, expression closed, jaw tight. She wanted to say something, anything, but there were no words. She opened the door, stepped out slowly, legs shaking, closed it gently, and stood there, on the sidewalk, waiting. But Cesar didn't look at her. He started the engine and drove away. Alice watched the car disappear, tail lights fading into the night. Then she collapsed, sat on the curb, clutching his jacket, tears finally falling, his scent still wrapped around her, wood, leather, Cesar. And it hurt, because on Monday, when she returned that jacket, it would be the last time. She would be fired, forgotten, erased from his life, as if she had never existed. And the worst part, she couldn't blame him. She had destroyed everything. Alone. Alice climbed the stairs unsteady, locked the door, dropped her bag, slid down the wall, sat right there, at the entrance, legs weak, the jacket still on her shoulders. She pulled it close, buried her face in the fabric and cried until there was nothing left, until her body hurt, until she fell asleep, curled on the cold floor, holding the only piece of him she had. That same night, across the city, Cesar drove with no destination, hands crushing the steering wheel, jaw locked. He tried to control his breathing, but something burned inside him. "You're not yourself," his own words echoed. True, necessary, but more expensive than anyone imagined, because when Alice pulled him into that kiss, for a fraction of a second, less than that, he almost responded, almost lost the control he'd held for months. He squeezed the wheel harder, 20 years apart, boss and assistant. She was drunk, vulnerable, everything wrong. But when he held her shoulders, when he felt her trembling body against his, when he saw those eyes filled with pain and want, it took everything he had to step back. He got home after midnight, didn't sleep, stared at the ceiling, fighting something he could not allow. Sunday came. Alice woke with a crushing headache, dragged herself to the couch, picked up her phone. Dozens of messages. Mariana. "Are you okay?" Others. "What happened? Do you need anything?" Alice turned the phone off, spent the day lying there, didn't eat, drank water, just existed, between sleep and awareness, trying not to think. But she did. She thought about Monday, about resigning before he fired her, about never seeing Cesar again, and that hurt more than anything. That same Sunday, Cesar was at the office, alone. Empty building. Just him and silence. He tried to work, reports, meetings, but his mind kept returning to her. The kiss he had stopped, the tremor in her shoulders, the broken look she tried to hide, the jacket he placed on her without thinking. A gesture that should have meant nothing, but meant everything. Why did I feel that? That was the question, not about protecting her, that was obvious. Anything else would have been unforgivable. Protecting Alice wasn't the issue. What haunted him was something else. The second he almost forgot the entire company, the moment he almost kissed her back, the fact that he couldn't leave her alone, that when she fell apart, something in him cracked too. The real question burned. Why couldn't I keep my distance? That was the truth he feared. He closed the laptop late afternoon, controlled violence, ran his hands over his face, exhausted. Ignoring Alice had worked for months. Keeping distance had worked. Pretending indifference had worked. Until Saturday night. Now the control he prized was fractured, and Monday would force him to face what he had avoided for too long. Alice woke Monday at 5, barely slept, dark circles under her eyes. She showered, dressed carefully, grey blouse, black skirt, low shoes. Nothing that drew attention. Hair pulled into a perfect bun. She took Cesar's jacket, folded it with excessive care, placed it in her bag, looked at herself in the mirror. She looked like a ghost, but she was ready to resign, ready to end everything with dignity, ready to say goodbye. She left at 7, arrived at 7:30. The building was almost empty. Good. She went up to the executive floor. The corridor was silent. Her steps echoed on marble. She stopped at his door. The light was on, he was already there. Alice took a deep breath, gripped the bag. The jacket felt like lead inside. She raised her hand, knocked. "Come in." His voice, firm, controlled. She opened the door. Cesar sat behind the desk, dark suit, straight posture. He looked up, their eyes locked. For a second, no one moved. Then he gestured to the chair. "Sit." She obeyed, legs trembling, bag on her lap. The weight of the jacket undeniable. Silence. "I came to return this." Her voice came out weaker. She took the jacket out, extended it. Cesar looked at the fabric, didn't take it, and to resign. She continued, forcing steadiness. "I understand what happened was unacceptable. I won't cause more discomfort. I'll leave." Cesar stayed still, long seconds, then leaned back, fingers interlaced, eyes fixed on her, so intense she forgot to breathe. "No." She blinked. "What?" "You won't resign." His voice calm, firm. "And I won't fire you. It made no sense. After what happened, we need to talk." He interrupted. "For real, no masks." He stood, walked around the desk slowly, each step heavy. Alice followed him with her eyes. Heart racing, he stopped by the window, back to her, hands in pockets. The silence between them had weight. When he spoke, it wasn't the voice she knew. "The coldness I keep with you isn't indifference." The air left her lungs. The room tilted. He turned, his face tight, eyes carrying something he fought to bury. "It's self-control," his voice rough. Or it was. Until Saturday night. Alice clutched the jacket. I don't understand." He took a step toward her, stopped midway, as if an invisible line held him back. "You think I don't feel anything for you?" His voice faltered. "Barely. You think keeping this distance is easy?" She couldn't breathe. "But you've always been cold, distant." He ran a hand over his face. "Raw. I had to be. I tried to be." "Alice, you're 23. I'm 43. 20 years. He gestured between them. "And you're my assistant." "I'm your boss. There are lines here. Lines a decent man doesn't cross. Lines I—" He inhaled deeply. "Lines I tried to respect." Her hands shook. "So you—" He closed his eyes, like confessing a sin. When he opened them, no mask. "I feel, Alice. Low. Deep. I felt it for months, more than I should. And every day it gets harder to pretend I don't." Alice covered her mouth, tears spilling. The silence between them pulsed. "But you rejected me," she whispered, wounded. Cesar stepped closer. This time he didn't stop. "Because you were drunk," his voice firm, but his eyes carried pain. "Because you were vulnerable. Because if I had answered that kiss, even for a second, I would have lost you. Forever." The words hit Alice like a soft, devastating blow. He stayed close, just one step away. "If something happens between us," his voice dropped even lower, "it will be when you are sober, aware, and knowing exactly the man I am, and what it means to love someone like me." Alice cried, but not from shame, from relief, from understanding, from truth finally spoken. Now she saw it clearly. The coldness was not rejection. It was protection. It was struggle. It was fear of destroying her. The man in front of her had fought a feeling he never truly stood a chance against. Cesar wanted her, deeply, dangerously, inevitably, as much as she wanted him. And that changed everything. Alice couldn't stop looking at him. He had said it out loud. "No masks." "I feel it. I felt it for months." The words echoed, rewriting everything she thought she knew. Alice tried. Her voice failed. "I didn't know." "You weren't supposed to," Cesar said, still steady. "I worked hard to make sure you didn't." He walked back behind the desk, as if distance was the only thing keeping control intact. He sat, ran his hands over his face. But now you know, and we need to decide what to do with this. Alice pressed the jacket to her chest, still unsure this was real. What do you want to do? Cesar lifted his eyes, intense, unfiltered. I want to kiss you. Right now, in this office. The honesty stole her breath. But I can't, he continued. Because you're still my assistant, because there are 20 years between us, because it would be irresponsible. Tears burned again. So there's no solution. He stayed silent. Long seconds, then exhaled. Maybe there is, but it has to be careful. With limits. What kind of limits? Professional, he said. At work nothing changes. No favoritism, no special treatment. Alice nodded, trying to keep up. And outside the office. He hesitated. Outside of here, we can try. Friendship, something that lets us know each other without work in the way, without pressure, without expectations. Friendship. The word felt wrong, too small. But she understood. It was all they could have. For now. Okay, she said softly. We can try. Cesar watched her, then stood. You keep the jacket, he said, pointing to the fabric in her hands. Consider it a long loan. She looked at it, then at him. Thank you, for everything, for not firing me. You don't need to thank me, he cut in. I did what was right. He walked to the door, opened it. The gesture was clear. Conversation over. Time to work. Alice stood, put the jacket back in her bag, walked past him. Then, the door closed. Alice froze, turned slowly. Cesar stood just a few steps away, too close. One more thing, his voice low. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. He stepped closer, then closer, until only inches remained. His eyes dropped to her lips, stayed there. Hungry. Her heart raced. She felt his heat, every nerve awake. You're sober now, he whispered, rough, still watching her mouth. And you're still my assistant. He leaned in, just enough for her to feel his breath. Inches, only inches apart. She didn't know whether to step back or forward, didn't know whether to breathe or stop. His eyes lifted, met hers. Desire, control. At war. If I kiss you now. His voice barely sound. I won't stop. She swallowed. Then don't. I know I shouldn't, he said, but didn't move away. And yet you're here, looking at me like that. He raised his hand. Slow. His fingers brushed her cheek. A minimal touch, burning. I spent months pretending I didn't want this. His hand slid to her neck, fingers tangled in her hair. Alice closed her eyes. The world vanished. Only him. Only closeness. Impossible. Cesar, she whispered. I know. He answered. Tense. I know I can't. But he stayed. And so did she. Seconds stretched, breath mixed, desire thick in the air. He tilted his head, moved closer, their lips almost. The door opened. Cesar, sorry, but the client. Beatrice stopped. Alice and Cesar pulled apart instantly, like fire. Beatrice looked between them. Understanding crossed her face. She said nothing, just raised a brow. Sorry. Professional. Didn't know you were busy. I wasn't, Cesar replied, his voice cold again, distant. Alice was already moving. She grabbed her bag, didn't look at either of them. Walked out, closed the door, leaned against the hallway wall, legs weak, heart pounding. He almost kissed you. He almost lost control. Because of you. She touched her lips, still felt his breath, the closeness, the hunger, and realized something terrifying. That almost kiss was more intense than any real one she'd ever had, because it wasn't just desire. It was restraint. It was struggle. Two hearts fighting not to fall, and failing. She returned to her desk in silence, But she knew nothing would ever be the same, because Cesar had shown something he could no longer hide, and she had felt something she could no longer deny. They were both lost, and there was no going back. Wednesday afternoon, an email arrived. Alice was reviewing spreadsheets. The notification blinked. Cesar Almeida. Subject, personal. Her heart jumped. She opened it. I'd like to invite you to dinner. Friday, 8 p.m. outside the city. Somewhere quiet. A place where we can talk without interruptions, no obligation. But I'd really like you to come. Cesar. She read it 3 times. Then again. Outside the city. No interruptions. I'd really like you to come. It wasn't work. Not a company event. It was personal. Real. She inhaled. Typed before courage escaped. I'll be there. Sent. The reply came quickly. I'll pick you up. 7:10 p.m. Friday. She changed outfits 5 times. Too formal. Too much. Too casual. Too revealing. Finally chose navy blue. Simple. Elegant. Knee-length. Mid-heels. Hair loose. Soft waves. Minimal makeup. She looked in the mirror. Still herself. Just stronger. At 7 sharp, the bell rang. She grabbed her bag, breathed, opened the door. Forgot how. Cesar stood there. Dark grey suit. No tie. Shirt slightly open. Hair undone. Eyes fixed on her. You look beautiful, he said. Simple, honest. Thank you, she murmured. He offered his arm. She took it. The restaurant was an hour away, hidden, elegant, surrounded by trees, by a lake, few tables, soft lights, instrumental music. No one knew them there, no judgment. They were led to a table by the window, moonlight on water. Alice sat, Cesar across from her, and for the first time, no desk, no glass walls, no employees watching, just them and the night holding its breath. Alice broke the silence first. Her voice was calm, but her hands were not. You've been here before, she said. Not accusing, just curious. Cesar didn't answer right away. He looked at the lake. The water was still, almost too still. A few times, he replied, when I need to disappear. When the city gets too loud. She nodded. That makes sense. He agreed. But he wasn't looking at the lake anymore. He was looking at her. Alice felt it, that quiet heat, that familiar tension. She turned her face away, trying to breathe, trying not to blush. The waiter arrived, menus in hand. They ordered without much thought. Wine for him, juice for her. When they were alone again. Silence returned, but it wasn't empty. It was waiting. Why did you bring me here? Alice asked, finally. Cesar took a slow sip of wine, placed the glass down carefully, then he looked at her. That look, the one that always disarmed her. Because at the office, he said, I'm your boss. You're my assistant. There are rules, structures, expectations. He leaned forward slightly, not touching, but close. And here, he continued, far from all that, we can just be us. The word landed heavy, strange, new, terrifying, perfect. And who are we? Alice asked, braver than she felt. Cesar smiled, small, almost invisible. We're still figuring that out. The food arrived, plates placed gently between them. They ate in silence at first, a few minutes, long enough to feel safe. Then Cesar spoke again. He talked about his past, how the company started, how nothing was handed to him. He spoke of long nights, empty apartments, years where success came, but people didn't. I always put work first, he admitted. Relationships came second, or third, or nowhere at all. Because it was easier, he said. Running a company is simple. Running emotions isn't. Alice listened, really listened. Then she spoke, about her family, about working early, paying for school, about dreams she never said out loud and fears that never left. I always thought I wasn't enough, she confessed. Too young, too inexperienced, Too small to matter. Caesar didn't hesitate. You were never insignificant, he said. Firm, certain. Not for 1 second. She looked up, met his eyes. I know there's 20 years between us, he continued. I know that scares you. It scares me too. He leaned closer. But I've never seen you as a child. Never. You're intelligent, strong, determined. But you have a whole life ahead of you, Alice argued, experiences I don't have. And you have a perspective I lost, he replied. You still see the world with hope, with fire. Things I forgot along the way. He reached across the table, stopped, hesitated, then placed his hand over hers. The touch burned. I don't want to protect you like a father, he said softly. I want to know you like a man knows a woman. I want to respect you, challenge you, love you the right way. Tears filled her eyes. How do you know it's the right way? She whispered. I don't, he admitted, but I know this isn't paternal. It's desire. It's romance. It's something I can't ignore anymore. His fingers tightened around hers. And if you give me one chance, I'll prove that age doesn't matter. Not when what we feel is real. Alice stared at their hands, then at him. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe. One chance, she whispered. Caesar smiled. A real smile. One she had never seen before. One chance, he repeated. He didn't let go of her hand all night. They returned to the city after midnight. Caesar drove slowly, as if time could be stretched. Alice watched the window, but felt his warmth beside her. When they stopped in front of her building, neither moved. Thank you for tonight, she said. Thank you for accepting, he replied. She turned toward him. He was already watching. That tension returned. The impossible one. The always there one. May I walk you to the door, he asked. She nodded. They climbed the stairs together, stopped in front of her apartment. Too close, too quiet. Caesar lifted his hand, moved a strand of hair from her face. His fingers brushed her skin. Soft. Devastating. Good night, Alice, he whispered. Good night, she replied. Her voice broke. He stepped back, turned to leave. Caesar, she called. He stopped, turned around. I feel it too, she said. Everything you feel. He closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, there was certainty. He stepped closer, held her face gently, and this time, he didn't stop. Their lips met, soft, intentional, real, not rushed, not stolen. Alice closed her eyes. The world disappeared. There was only warmth, only him, only that impossible tenderness. The kiss deepened slowly. Months of restraint. Desire held back. Something bigger than both of them. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. Are you sure? He whispered. She looked at him closely. The lines near his eyes, the tension in his jaw, the vulnerability he never showed anyone. I'm sure, she said. It won't be easy, he warned. People will judge. The age. The job. I know, she interrupted, and I don't care. She placed her hand over his. I spent months thinking you'd never see me. That I was invisible. Now you're here, feeling the same. I won't give this up. I won't give you up. Caesar breathed deeply. Then let's try, he said. For real. Together, she replied. Together, he repeated, and kissed her again. Alice rested her head on his shoulder. Caesar wrapped his arm around her, pulled her closer, and they stayed like that. In silence, just feeling peace, relief, the certainty that despite everything, they were exactly where they were meant to be. Caesar left her apartment as the sky began to lighten. At the door, he kissed her once more, soft, promising, full of tomorrow. Monday is going to be interesting, he said, almost smiling. Alice smiled back. We can be professional, she said. Caesar let out a low laugh, the kind he rarely allowed himself. "We'll try," he replied, "but I'm not making promises." Alice laughed too, light, real. The sound made his smile grow just a little more. Caesar touched her face again, as if he couldn't stop himself. "Get some sleep," he said. "You'll need energy." "For what?" she asked. "To survive a boss who's in love and trying not to look at you all day." Alice blushed. Caesar smiled for real this time. Then he left. Alice closed the door, leaned her back against it, and for the first time in months, she felt peace. Real peace. There were no more doubts, no more fear, no more pain. Only the certainty that the man she loved, the man who once felt unreachable, distant, impossible, loved her back and was willing to fight for it, for her, for them. Alice walked to the window, watched his car disappear down the street. She smiled. Then she noticed his jacket, still hanging on the back of the chair, the jacket he had placed over her shoulders. That night at the party, the jacket that protected her. That changed everything. She lifted the fabric, brought it to her face, inhaled deeply. Wood, leather, Caesar. But this time the scent didn't hurt. It promised. 3 months later. A quiet morning. Coffee on the table. Sunlight filling the apartment. His apartment, now theirs. Caesar set his cup down, looked at Alice. She was barefoot, in pajamas, hair messy, laughing at something on her phone. So different from the controlled assistant he had met. So free, so herself. "What are you thinking?" she asked, catching his stare. "That kiss at the party," Caesar said. "It was the most perfect mistake of my life." Alice smiled. "It was a mistake," she said. "It was," he agreed. "You were drunk. It was impulsive. It happened in front of everyone." He leaned in, kissed her softly. "But it forced me to stop lying. To you, and to myself." Alice laced her fingers with his. "Then thank drunk Alice," she said. "I do," Caesar replied, smiling. "Every day." As the sunlight poured through the window, illuminating the coffee, the quiet smiles, the love they could finally live without masks, Alice realized something. Sometimes, the most embarrassing mistakes lead to the most perfect truths. Sometimes you have to break every rule to find what really matters, and sometimes the most unlikely love is the only one that makes sense. Alice looked at Caesar, the man who was still her boss, but no longer her distant obsession, no longer an impossible dream. He was simply hers, and that was everything she had ever wanted.